kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burnin' Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy.
Yes, sir.
We got a long-time listener of the show on, Cliff Schadt. He's a horse trainer in New York.
Say that again, buddy.
I said, were you up in New York for a little while?
I did. I was born and raised Long Island, New York. I'm a second-generation horse trainer. My mom and uncle trained hunter jumpers, and that's kind of all I knew as a kid. But when I was about 4 years old, I got a hand-me-down hat and a pair of boots from somewhere, and I put that on. I told my mom I wanted to be a cowboy, and that's all I ever wanted, and that's all I've ever been from that time on. I just hungered for it, man.
That's awesome. Well, you got a Montana number, so I'm assuming you spent a little time out there then, huh?
I spent quite a bit of time when I was about 18 or 19, and that was kind of back in the days when the internet was kind of lawless, and I found just a posting on some message board for somebody looking for a assistant trainer at a cutting horse outfit in Redmond, Oregon, and I just wanted out of New York so bad that I just went. I didn't really ask a lot of questions, and I didn't ask a lot of questions. I didn't really care. I just wanted to get out of where I was, and I went out there and went to work for the meanest SOB I ever worked for ever. But it was actually really good for me because it kind of toughened me up, and it made everybody I ever worked for after that seem like a walk in the park. And I went to work for him. I worked there 4 months. It was 2 months longer than really anybody ever stayed there working. So that was kind of an accomplishment in itself, but I was just determined not to go home. And after that, I made my way over to, there was this kind of eccentric older man, Maynard Alves. He was a neat character. He's a Portuguese feller, and really grew up around like Salinas, California, and kind of the peak of that bridle horse culture in that area. And I didn't know it at the time, but he really taught me a lot. And he had about 120 brood mares, and his horses were kind of miserable because he bred halter and pleasure horses to put them under cutting horse studs, and they weren't a lot of fun to ride. But the best part is that I got to get turned loose with as many colts as I wanted to start. He had everything from 2-year-olds up through 7 to 8-year-olds that had never been started, standing in a feedlot. He was independently wealthy, and he never sold anything. So me and a couple other guys that were there, we got to start a lot of horses and do it a lot of different ways and kind of figure things out. And that made a really big mark on me. And after that, I went on to Eastern Oregon, and I cowboyed all over like Baker City area, Keating Valley, and areas like that before going on to Nevada and Montana.
Okay, so you've been kind of all over then.
Been all over.
That's awesome. What was your favorite country to ride? Where was your favorite country?
Probably Montana. I spent quite a bit of time up in the Beartooth Mountains, and I loved it up there. It was really neat. I worked just a summer mountain grass program up there where we would get in about 2,500 head of yearlings, and spent about 3 years there. And it was just rope and doctor outside every day. They were really traditional, and just got a chance to make good horses and cowboy. I loved it. I also spent some time over around Pryor, Montana. Day worked some for like the S Ranch and Stovall's over there, and I love that too. That country is pretty neat.
Yeah, that Montana's some pretty country. I haven't seen a lot of it, but I've seen enough to know that it's sure enough pretty. But the folks that live there full time, they're a little tougher than most, you know.
Oh
They-
yeah,
they-
yeah, like old Derek Mott up there.
Oh, those damn North Dakotans, they don't have anything good to say about anybody, you know. And then once
Oh,
they start chirping at everybody because, well, let's nothing to do in North Dakota except bitch at everybody else because it's just cold all the damn.
If I lived in that miserable country, I'd probably do the same. There's not much else to do.
I know it. I like old Derek a lot, but I like
I sure do.
giving him shit about just talking. He's always picking on the Texans for bitching about the cold, which is fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm all in favor of that too.
No, nobody's really safe from Derek. Nobody is safe.
No, he's to say he's opinionated would be the understatement of the century, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, but no, that was.
I really.
He's a cool cat. Cool cat, and a handy bugger. I've learned a lot just visiting with him.
Yeah, for sure. Him and Hartman's kind of the same way, but Hartman's a little more slick with his humor. You know, like I love when Hartman.
Sure is.
I love when he goes on a tear on Facebook. You know, he's always on Facebook jail, but then he'll pop up with another account, and it's just like a 20 meme string of just raunchy memes.
Oh my gosh, he
love it.
Doesn't care about nothing. He just they
it.
don't make him like Dan. Dan is a throwback Bronc man from way back. I mean, there's just not a lot like him left.
He's a lot like. Did you ever read Buffalo Bill's autobiography?
Yeah, I sure have.
He reminds me a lot of like a Buffalo Bill or a Kit Carson type of character.
Yeah.
The humor of like a Ben Franklin, you know.
Yes. Definitely kind of a frontiersman kind of a personality. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, he's a hoot. He just cracks me up. That's one of the cool things about doing this podcast is I've legit become friends with guys like Derek Mott and you know Dan Hartman and Boots O'Neill. I'm legit buddies with people. It's that I like. Like Derek and Dan, I haven't met in person yet, but still, like that. I know that if like push comes to shove, I'll be like, "Hey, man, can I come crash on your couch and help?"
Exactly, and I've done it too. I've done it through Facebook connections and stuff. It's a lot of people. I think they bitch about the internet and this and that, but the truth of it is that social media has made the cowboy world a whole lot smaller, and I really think it's helping to preserve it. Because now we've got podcasts like yours and bloggers and different things like that, and there's so much more information than when I was coming up. You know, in the mid to late 90s, the only place you really had to go to learn was from some old timer who, if you were lucky, he might talk to you 5 times in a day, and a few of those times were just getting cussed at. So you really struggled to learn anything, and now it's so accelerated because there's just so much information out there, and so many friendships are getting built on it too, which is just neat.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like that's I've told people, several different times. Like the coolest thing to see when I post a meme is like seeing people, and it used to happen a lot on Facebook, but then when all the censorship shit went down, like it doesn't happen anymore. A little bit more in the groups, but it's cool like seeing people that I know connected through my show, like
that's right
in the comments, and you're just like,
yeah,
it has shrank the size of the cowboy world considerably, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
because same with me. I never knew that there was I never knew that people still went out on a wagon. I didn't know that existed. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. And then it wasn't until really like after college, I was like, oh shit, that stuff still happens. Man,
still,
and then by the time I like really, yep, and that's one of my biggest regrets. I talked about that with John Langmore the other day, and it's not some regret. It's just like, man, I wish I would have done it, because now I got a wife and 2 kids, and it's it's gonna have to be like a week trip on the wagon instead of like but it's it's really cool getting to know and different styles of cowboy.
Yes, sir.
It's shocking how handy some of those guys are down south. You know, like in the southeast.
Oh, yeah.
Part. It honestly shocked me, and I was like, because you don't think about the cowboys down there, and even me working in the feedlot, we used to get a ton of Florida and like Alabama, Arkansas cattle, Tennessee, but I never once thought about the guys, that the cowboy out
that were producing them. Yeah.
I always figured it was just some hillbilly with a pair of overalls and bare feet, pushing his 6 head of steers around. And there is a lot of that throughout the South. But, but there's also some guys, I mean, like I was talking with John Darnell.
Yep.
But, just kind of getting to know the outfit that he used to be on. Yeah. And the stuff that they used to do, I mean, they were running some serious amount of cattle down there, and and you can tell from their videos. I mean, they are handy.
Oh yeah. My buddy down here, Clancy Bro, he works for the Deseret, and he's like a unit manager for them for one of their units, and that is as big an outfit as you'll find anywhere. I mean, someone told me they had about 30,000 pairs.
Yeah, I think I heard somewhere they're running like 80,000 head of mama cows when they're like fully. I mean, and that's another thing you don't think about, or I didn't think about it a lot growing up. Mormon cowboys, but like that's what Utah is Mormon cowboys.
That's what it is.
And then you start looking into that Mormon church and like the stuff they own, and like, man, they are mega players in the cattle.
Massive. Like, massive.
Yeah. And it's, it made me start to think maybe I shouldn't talk so much shit on the Mormons, because
I kind of feel the same way. I might find myself working for them one day.
I know it. I'm not too worried about it, because I think even the Mormons that listen to the show, like I've got compliments on how I approach all my research on them, because I really am just coming at it from just a student of history, because I want to know like how it happened, why it happened, and just the awesome stories. Because when you think about it, they from the original settlement of Salt Lake City. Being about, I think it was like 150 original migrants that settled there. And within 20 years, they had, or maybe it was in 5 years, they had like 20,000 people.
Yeah.
It was just a really incredible process that they went through. So I'll still talk shit. And they got good humor about it.
Yes, sir.
It's but I'm fascinated by that whole story, and just how like resilient those guys are. They are self-reliant.
Well, it's their ability to build a dynasty. Really, that's what's so interesting about it. And you can take all the religion right out of it, just as an industrious group of people that all kind of work for a common goal and build something that's really quite respectable, and just their businesses and things like that. It's pretty impressive, no matter how you slice it from that perspective.
Oh, I think so too. And coming at it from like an economic standpoint, they started out as essentially communists, like they're a lot like they're a lot like China in that perspective, like not so from like the human rights abuses but just like from a sheer economic standpoint, they went from
well, it's that worker bee hive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. It's kind of that worker bee hive mentality, where everybody kind of plays their part and then knows their role, and they're working for the good of the people, and it seems to work for them. I mean, it's not what I would subscribe to, but the proof is in the pudding. I guess they're pretty successful in what they're doing.
Well, and maybe my next project after I get done with the Mormons would be kind of to look at the Mennonites as well, like the Mennonites. And the
Yes, sir. Mennonites, Hutterites. Yep.
Amish, would be be the same. There's some hellacious Amish cowboys too.
There sure are. Sure is. There's the Smucker boys up near Pennsylvania. They're ungodly handy. They're super handy.
I might have to get in touch with some of those guys. That'd be interesting as well. Like
I could make that happen if you ever want to.
Heck yeah, we'll talk afterwards. But like details anyways. But yeah, I'd love to do that. And and that's the cool thing about this podcast. It's like why I encourage people to share it around is because I know somebody's out there listening that also has some connection. Hey, Charlie Benizzi, I know you're.
I was just with Charlie this morning.
Oh no shit.
Oh yeah, Charlie's one of my good friends.
He's a cool guy. He sent me. He's the one that introduced me to Owen Ulf, and he's the one that put me in touch with Matthew Hedges. And but I love about Charlie is he is just a has a mind for history and just like obscure history like me. Like,
yes, he does.
Souls in that vein of things. He's always sending me interesting shit, and then we get into a little back and forth of different stuff, and I love that. Like there's I don't know if you listened to that John Yearwood the Garth author. He was the guy talking about Tiny Wood, Texas.
I haven't, but I'll check it out.
You'll like him. He's a really interesting guy. He ran a small town newspaper in East Texas for like 40 years or something. And
I'll be darned.
He wrote a really cool novel, and it's loosely based around a true story. But he was also like at one point we were talking about the certain military strategies of the Civil War and how when Grant had so much success in the West and cut off the Mississippi River, really broke back to the South. And I don't know how we got off down that topic, but it was just I've talked to some people that I would have never in 1,000 years, 5 years ago. It's pretty neat.
Yep.
But yeah, like anyway, like Charlie, he's always sending me crazy things to think about. Yeah, then he's a cool son of a bitch. I like that.
He sure is. He's a really good guy, and we have a lot in common, Charlie and I, because we both grew up on the East Coast. He grew up up near Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard, that kind of area, and I grew up right out there on Long Island, maybe 60 miles apart from each other, and we both grew up in hunter-jumper families, and we both have this crazy love for all things, cowboy and cowboy culture. So we kind of bonded over that and became good buddies. We met up, we were starting colts. I was starting colts with Martin Black, and that's how Charlie and I met, and we just kind of became pards. And now whenever I'm down in South Florida, he comes and helps me with colts and things like that. It's pretty neat.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to make a trip up to New York. Maybe you can meet me up there, because I bet some of the people that I know in New York are not very far removed from people that you know.
Yeah.
They grew up right on Long Island Sound there in Rye.
Yep.
and I'm guessing, I don't know if you guys would know each other directly, but I bet there's not very many degrees of separation. And I always enjoyed my time in New York. I'm a small town kid, there's something about seeing that city, just like watching people.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, I'd like to spend or like go around like upstate New York sometimes there. So it's funny how
my folks live up there.
Okay.
Yeah, my
it's
folks
funny
are
how
up there in New York, and
nice.
go ahead.
I would say it's funny how like every state is exactly the same essentially. Like they have these big urban centers that they're wildly liberal, and then as soon as you get outside the city, like it gets a lot more conservative. I guess Vermont's a little different. Vermont's like kind of overrun with liberals, but like even like states like New York or Massachusetts or New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all those like bigger population states, California too. Out of the cities, like people are pretty fucking normal.
Yeah.
And and it's funny how New York, if you look at the electoral map, it's just was like Buffalo and New York City essentially.
Tommy Jessel
is what is what votes blue, and everything else is red.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's the thing is that so many of these states, those urban centers make all the decisions, and they speak for all the rest of the state that's red, and the repercussions are pretty crappy. But it's a hard thing to get away from.
Yeah, it really is, and the hard part is, and I think us on the rural end, I was talking about it with Tuffy the other day, is we're so disconnected from how stuff runs in the city too. I mean, like we assume that it's all just these fucking Antifa marches all the time, but really there's a lot of just liberal, tough, working class guys that go to work every day and they make shit, and like that's the shit that we use out in the areas. But that's the weird thing is like we're not having conversations about that. We're having conversations about transgender kids and shit. It's like that's an important conversation to have too. But I'm much more like I want to talk to the union workers and see what their grief is. When that railroad strike was going down, the union guys essentially got fucked on that deal when Biden stepped in and made the deal. Now you're seeing all this safety shit come up, and you're like, well, maybe they should have listened to the working guy there, and just because they're going to vote Democrat because they're union guys, that doesn't mean that we don't have like almost the same values.
Right.
And it makes it makes sense for them, for even as ridiculous of a candidate that the Democrats put up. They're still going to vote Democrat because that's the union is the Democratic Party. And so, like, I mean, there seems to be like a very obvious reach across the aisle deal there. With Republicans.
Oh yeah.
But they never do. It's the powers that be have us fighting about trans kids and climate change. Well, we're not talking to our counterparts in the city. We should be. Yeah.
Well, that's where it's so easy just to distract the people. You get people fired up over whether it be BLM or trans kids or whatever it is, and I'm not even. I don't really care one way or the other. Everybody's got a story, and I think everybody's got a right to be happy, and I'm fine with all that. But they whip people into a fervor over these controversial points, and we're just passing over the stuff that's so important, and really we're passing over stuff that could unite the people instead of divide them. But we're so busy getting caught up on the stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. It's I mean, and like you said, there is something to be said about pushing it on the kids shit, but also like it's the same way with like the gay marriage stuff. Like if it doesn't affect you, it's not hurting anybody. Like why do you care? You can have your opinion on it, but like why try to force a law on that?
Yes.
I don't know. But they get us so riled up about that shit where like they're robbing us blind. And
That's right.
Sending our most capable defenders of the country. They're sending them over to die thousands of miles away. Only thing I can see is oil and money. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what it always boils down to.
Yep. So they like us fighting about the trans kids. Well, they just pump our money and just steal more of it and then pump it over else. Yeah. It's wild. I'm pretty balls deep in this meatpacking industry research, and it's a disturbing trend, I guess. It's how everything went, and like we are so interconnected with and like dependent on those packers. It's like they are so dependent on the cattle rancher. They are becoming less and less dependent. They're screwing us over. They've got dairy guys at a steady constant rate. Like they are, and more and more people that they are exporting, the less dependent they are on ranchers. That's where it scares me. Like I don't know where it goes from. Like if the more the cattle rancher gets phased out, the less leverage they have. Charlie's froze, or I mean Cliff's froze. Maybe. There we are. We're back. Anyway, that's what scares me. It's the Packers use the ranchers. There we are. Okay.
Yeah, they're
like we're the Indians that we pushed off our land, and now the the Packers are the Cowboys that push, or the Army that pushed the Indians off. Let's
that's a really good analogy.
It's I don't think it's ever gonna go anywhere, but it's just gonna be big outfits, big outfits. The way the market is, there's still a lot of family farmers out there, pretty large scale.
Yep.
And just it's the same way with the dairy market. There's a few families. They run huge outfits, and it seems like the beef industry is that way too. The more these dairy dairy crosses people, the more dependent, or like the more you're going to see ranchers involved in that. And I can't blame them.
No.
It's kind of a catch-22. I don't know. Like the reason I respect ranchers, they're self-reliant, they're industrious, they're independent. But they're gonna, the way it's trending, they're gonna have to bend the knee and ask the government to step in so they can continue being stubborn self-reliant, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be, because it's going to be probably a subsidy that saves the ranch meat.
Yeah. Well, I think that oftentimes the government has a hard time with independent people and independent thinkers, and I mean that really sums up the cowboy and ranching community, and so I don't think it's a coincidence everything that's going on. I think that creating a more vulnerable ranching community and developing a need for the government and the people, causing them to rely more on a government handout and things like that, that puts the people in a much more controllable spot. And, I think that's what they're steering things toward. I don't think any of this is by chance. I think it's all manipulated.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. And I mean, when you look at the meatpacking industry, ever since it really took off there in Chicago, it has been a hand over fist money maker. And
yes, sir.
And even before the industrial part, you could figure out a way to out that was last. Had not hard, and so they've always been.
I can hardly hear you, buddy.
Oh, I was saying, the more, okay, every time there's a war, you have to feed that art. And you come out pretty quickly.
Yep.
And so it's that's a very wonderful always happen. The more welfare programs there are, the lunch, the WIC program. That's that's contracts for beef and dairy and pork. And that's big money there. Big money.
Yes.
And yet your average, even your big ranchers, they ain't got that kind of pull, man. They might have it in their little regions, but once you get on a nationwide scale, man, your biggest ranch, except the Mormons are working their way up there. Personally. But outside of that, your big ranch they ain't got anywhere near the pull that that those meat packing people have. I mean, they've got the money.
No,
they control the end product, and therefore they control the market.
Those packers are kind of like a mafia at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just every so often people have enough, and they get broken up, and they get regulated a little bit more. But the more regulation involved, the more red tape you have to jump through, and the more money that costs, and it's just a higher barrier to entry for a small time packer. And so they may break them up here, but they'll reform somehow, and that's kind of the beauty of the American system, but it's also the drawback. It's
yes, sir.
If you're anywhere on Earth, for a company to rise from nothing to controlling the entire market, but there's just something when companies scale like that where it gets real unethical real quick.
Yes.
And then like when you look at the rancher, I put the rancher and the libertarian in the same category because they know their business.
Yep.
They're self-reliant. They got themselves and kind of leave everybody else alone. But it's also their biggest flaw because they can't agree with anybody on anything ever.
Yeah. The rancher less reliant on big packers, and I think more kind of like was
Uh-oh. We'll have to wait till Cliff comes back. His must have been going through some bad service there. He's
hey there, I cut out for a second. I don't know what happened.
That's all right. Yeah, it's man, I look at how the cattle industry started and how the packing industry started, and it's such a intertwined, like, into the thing. But always had and like that, so they're just they kind of won from the start because very very first during the Revolutionary War, how like the right it was a government contract for so many and like right from the very get-go, the Packers had it there again. Like it was. Ranchers never stood here. That's it.
Yes, sir.
But I don't know. There's I see the growing trend, like organic, pasture raised stuff, or whatever. That's a boon for the rancher. Eventually, that stuff hasn't slowed down any. If anything, it's picked up, and I think it's a good thing. I've worked in these mega big clubs, and it's I don't think it's wrong necessarily, but it's a little ickier.
Yep.
A little harder to defend. The same way like the dairy guys. Like, man, when you see, you hear that like. All of the Holsteins in the U.S. are traced back to 3 different bulls. As their origin point. And you're just like, man, you guys need some new genetics. Like it's pretty hard to defend you at this point.
Yeah, it sure is.
So I think the more people are looking for a small scale type deal, like family.
Heck yeah.
It's a boon for the rancher if the rancher would just recognize it. And there are people that have, and some of them are having a tough go of it, but a lot of them are thriving. And they're like, they're not necessarily getting rich, but they're not as worried about how they're going to make their land paid and their cattle paid.
Yes, sir. A perfect example, I think, of what you're talking about is I have a dear friend, Kathy Cavender, who she actually works for me. She does all my business management, my books, payroll, all that fun stuff that cowboys shouldn't be allowed to do anyway. And but Kathy, she has a multi-generational family farm up in Virginia. She's cowgirl through and through, and she took the family farm and kind of the traditional way of doing things, and now she markets kind of boutique beef. She sells a lot of it goes directly to restaurants and places like that, as well as selling directly to her customers. And she, as she deserves for producing such a good product and high quality beef, she does well at it, and it's really changed the face of her place up there and what she's doing. And I think a lot of people could take some lessons from that. A big outfit isn't going to be able to do that, but a lot of these smaller places, she does a lot of yearlings there, and kind of finishes them out herself, and she's got a great little program going, and it's, I think, a perfect model for what we need more of.
Well, and exactly, as you're seeing like a depopulation of the major urban centers too. Like there's smaller cities that are getting way big. Like Reno is one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. and it has grown incredibly since I first came or first visited Reno in 2012. In a little over a year. And it is, like, at the time it was about 150,000. 300,000. And you get to as there a lot of there's around those cities, like there's little towns, but like get in deal with those restaurants and like explain to them how the stuff works, how your problem is, and maybe you won't be butting heads. Don't be a dick to them initially. Like that's kind of it's hard not to. You've seen especially coming from Colorado, you see how that went from a tourist and an agricultural dominated states to tourism and agriculture. And you see how much it's still like kept alive because tourism is, it's physical tourism where people go to Colorado because they had a good experience skiing here. And I don't know. I don't know that state's just kind of gone the way of California. I just feel really bad for all the people I know, all the family and stuff that still live there. I don't know, rural edge of Colorado. It's like, man, it is an uphill fight at best.
Yes, sir.
I don't know but we changes. I mean, I think like you were saying earlier, how much is spread, it has made me a cowboy again. Like, look out! Right. You're gonna see some kids from the city come out the ranches because they saw Yellowstone, and some of those kids might turn out to be really tough. But yeah, it's it's interesting. I don't know. I think I always talk. They said the cowboy died 3 years ago, and there's been so many points throughout the history where they said, "Well, that's the end of the cowboy. We're still here, essentially doing the same thing that the old timers."
That's right.
Do a little different way, and I think that's always going to be the way how it is. I've seen. I meant to mention how I've watched plenty of videos of those little robots waving flags. They just get freight trained by a braver steer. And then they're just like spinning in a circle on the ground because they're on their side, and the flag's still just.
Oh yeah.
Those things, until like they make those like full Animorph robots that they're working on. Until that thing moves like a human, I'm not worried of any robot, replacing me in my job.
That's right. That's right.
It'll be interesting though if they do get those robots to where they can move like a human, and then the AI generation is like can tell them how to respond to this particular horse. Then I think we might truly be out of a job. But until that happens, I think we're good.
I don't know. I as a horseman, I don't think there's ever going to be anything that can replace human intuition. No matter, there's everything I've seen with AI. As far as it has progressed, it's still there's something there that lacks that human intuition, that human feel, and I think that when we look at horses and we rainbows and stuff like that, I'm talking about, get on the part of your horse where that horse works for you, and it's give and take based on leadership, and I really think it's hard to ever replace that. And it's the same with working dogs, things like that. It's just, I don't know, I think there's something there that is it's primal, it's part of us. I don't know that'll replace that soon.
Yeah, I think that if you go back to the first machine, like the first levers that came in, that machine was meant to be the job or to do more. And I don't think we're going to get to the point where the goal versus where the machine. There's no soul in the machine.
Your mic kind of keeps going in and out, buddy.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, there's no soul in a machine. Like it's always, the machines are always there to make the man's job easier. And I don't see that role ever being reversed. Like without the men doing the work to find all the shit and deal with the land and whatnot, to use the machines, like the machine has no purpose. So it's always the machine doing the work. So
That's right.
I don't know. I think there's but then, like with automation, where you make the machine do all the work, that cuts out the human on one end, particularly in these like factory jobs, but it also creates a chain where like they got to go find something, and so whether they find a new skill or just try a new profession, I don't know. It all leads to innovation somehow.
That's right.
and I don't know. I'm not that scared of it, but I am scared of the rancher becoming dependent on the government. I think increasingly that's headed, and that's the part that scares me, because once you do that, then it just leads to like big corporate takeovers, and because then once it's subsidized by the government, then it becomes profitable, and big business knows it's profitable industry to see once the government's back. So you'll have you'll have family ranches that the same family working, but now they're owned by Coca-Cola. I still cut you off.
Yeah, you just started to cut out again.
Okay.
There you go. That's good.
Okay. Cord was loose.
Perfect.
Yes. Awesome. So anyway, I think, I don't know, that's the thing that scares me, like I said, is just in order for this way of life to not go out of business. Or if it go out of business, they're going to get bought up by bigger outfits, or you're going to have like the same family running the range. Now, because it's backstopped by the government, it has become profitable.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
And big government or big companies, they know when they know when shit's profitable, so they'll buy in.
Yep. Well, it's
after what we were talking about earlier about the internet and social media kind of making the cowboy world a lot closer knit and a lot smaller. I think that's just so it's more important now than ever, with the trend toward replacing people with machines or doing it the more efficient way, or from the perspective of big business, the more efficient way, which isn't always the more efficient way when it comes to livestock. But I think that keeping the traditions alive and keeping up the conversations and passing on the information and things like that, it really creates a big shot in the arm for the industry, I believe. And as much as even things like, let's take Yellowstone, that everybody loves to rag on, a show like that has put cowboy life, as fake as it may be on the show, it's opened the door for people to look at what's really going on out there, what really happens on ranches now. And for the kids that watch that show and they go buy themselves a cheap hat, man, I was a kid in a cheap hat once, and you know what? I got to where I am because I had a hunger and because there were good guys that took me under their wing and kind of pushed me along. But if I hadn't been exposed to it somehow, I don't know that my life would have been on the same course. So I think it's just super important that, guys like you keep these conversations going, and, guys like me try to share my experience and help people whatever way I can, because that is, outside of the dollars and cents, outside of the business side of things, you got to keep the heart of the industry alive. And that comes down to the fact that there's nothing quite more American than a cowboy. And I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind and to even treasure,
Yeah. Well, and like as my world opens up on this deal, like there's such a good opportunity for outreach to even like particularly the Mexican culture, because they're proud of their cowboy culture too. Like and like that there wouldn't be the American cowboy without the Mexican cowboy, because they came from Spain and brought the old time traditions, which originated in like Morocco. So like we're talking the Muslim world too. Like, I mean, there's so much outreach there to be had, and but particularly on our continent, like there's there's such a need for like that lower worker type in the U.S. because
Yep.
for as much as we don't like the immigration problem, there ain't you won't find many white boys in the dairy. They're paying pretty good.
No.
And, but you can connect with those migrant workers because they may have cowboyed themselves, or their granddad did or something. They have a great culture. They're proud of it.
Yes.
And it's foolish. They do things different, but they're cowboy just the same. It's all if you're working horseback, you got something in common.
Kid up in Pennsylvania. He's I think third generation like Charo elite. He grew up in Mexico. Got over here as a little kid. He's one of the ropiest guys I know, and he holds a card as a PRCA pickup man. He takes that don't make it, and he turns them into saddle horses, and I mean good saddle horses. And this and he's found his Charo heritage, but he's also been really neat about embracing kind of the American styles of horsemanship and things like that. And he's a success story if there ever was one. And I mean, he is as cowboy. I love that kid.
Yeah, it's I've worked for or worked with like particularly a couple of older Mexican guys that just cowboyed their entire. They've done some other stuff. They grew up like in the desert. That's as grand as it gets. It's like once you cross that border, you go back in time, and then once you get out into the like you really go back in time.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting and kind of eye-opening for me to see this weekend. I'm just on my way back from West Palm Beach, Florida. My buddy, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Jace Angus, fell in Nevada, top hand, and also a hell of a saddler. But we went down for a kind of Bulls Broncs. On my first ranch bronc in about 7 years. I took two of them and made a little money, did all right, was happy to be back. But what really struck me was just how alive the cowboy culture is in the Cuban community down there. I mean, we were some of the only boys at the rodeo, and let me tell you, these guys were handy, they were ranchy, and just great guys to be around, a lot of camaraderie, and it just makes you appreciate the patchwork quilt that is cowboy culture here. And I tell guys all the time, man, it's hard to be racist and embrace this culture out of both sides of your mouth, because we wouldn't have what we have in this country in our culture if it wasn't for the melting pot. All the different immigrants that came here, everything from the Scots and Irish to the Mexicans and Spaniards and everything else. And I'm fascinated by the history of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I am too. And when I was talking with Patrick Menner the other day, his where he grew up in Tennessee was the same plot of land that his ancestors were slaves at. You look at the black people, particularly in Texas, they migrated after free, and they didn't do those things. I heard there was cows to catch in Texas, where they went. Those
You're going down a little bit again, buddy.
I said those sorry bastards, they probably got on the worst horses that there ever was, because they're going to work for a guy that used to own a couple of them, and now he's a little butthurt about that. And I bet the horse that those early black cowboys got stuck in their string were just killers, just the worst.
Oh man. It's pretty neat. One of my earliest cowboy influences, being a kid from Long Island, they were kind of slim pickings up there. I got to start hanging out with some guys that were part of what they call the Federation of Black Cowboys, and they're a bunch of fellas from New Jersey, New York, inner city, and literally in the basement of buildings in New York City and Jamaica, Queens, and Staten Island. These guys have some pretty jam up nice horses that they go out, they use them, they go to Pennsylvania, they go places like that, and these guys all, they ended up in the city because of jobs and things like that, but they all come from a ranching background, and they kind of got together and created this little network there, and I'll be honest, those were some of the first sure enough cowboys I ever got to be around, and they just kind of embraced me. They knew I had the same love they did, and it, as a young teenager, it gave me a really good opportunity to be around some sure enough guys that in a least likely place you'd expect, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's there. I think it was back in 2020. It was like the last full cowboy poetry gathering. Like their theme was like the ode to the black cowboy, and they had some exhibits there in the museum. I think they did a show or something, or like a movie or a documentary on, and it was like somewhere in like Compton. It was like the Compton Cowboys.
Yep, the Compton Posse they call it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Do you know a little bit about it?
Yeah, I know quite a little bit about it. I had a friend that she volunteered a lot of time to go work with the kids. She was a jumper trainer, but she came from her dad was a bridle horseman from California, so she had her earliest learning was cow horses and stuff. So she volunteered a lot to go work with the kids there in Compton, and they've got scholarships going to help get these kids out of the ghetto there and get them on horses, and people donate to it, and it's a really neat program, and it's pretty wild because I've seen pictures and just people taking videos of, kids straight up in the middle of the ghetto, and they're cowboyed out riding their horses around, and there's gangbangers all around them, and they're just doing the best they can to be cowboys, and it's great.
Yeah, it really is. It's easy to make fun of stuff like that, but it's also at the same time it's like it's pretty cool. Because somebody's grandpa, sure enough hand, and they just there was a couple of them because they probably moved into the city to go work at the meatpacking plant, back in the day, and
exactly,
and
or sale barn or something.
Yeah, and then they built those communities there in the inner city, but there's still a few of those old hands that kept it alive, I guess. And it's like it'd be really easy to look down and make fun of them, but also if you just take a little bit to figure out how it got to where it is, like I bet you there's a real cool story behind it.
Exactly, and I've heard some of those stories just through the guys I knew in New York, and some of the ones I've met from California and stuff, and there are some really neat stories attached to it, and you'd be amazed what some of that history is. It's really a neat thing, and for me, I've always had a real soft spot for anybody who has that desire, and I don't care how cheesy or corny they are. If they really have a desire to learn and embrace this culture, I've got a big soft spot there, because for me, coming from Long Island, when I first got out to the West, I ran into a lot of gatekeepers, guys that because I wasn't born into it and I was Eastern bred and blah, 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 that I sure could never be a hand. I could never make it in that life. And there were a lot of guys that just kind of, in certain terms, were just, hey, go home. This isn't for you, and this and that. And that just made me try harder. But it also made me really appreciate the guys that took me under their wing and really wanted to cultivate it in me and help me grow and help me be better. And that I've spent the rest of my life ever since I kind of made it. I've spent as much time as I can trying to help other kids and young people that want to come up and do this sort of thing, and that's where, like, even now I've got a pretty good little intern program in my deal where I take kids from all walks of life and try to help them get some skills, and a lot of them I've helped prep so that they could then go on out west. One of the first kids I helped was a fellow named Riley Williamson, who's now he makes futurity horses, trains cow horses out in Wisconsin, and he's probably close to 30 years old now, and came from Shelter Island, New York, and he rode with me since he was just a little kid, and then when he was 16, he came out and lived with me in Montana for a couple summers, and it's just awesome to see a kid like that. He's made a name for himself, and he's handy among the handy, and I'm just super proud of him.
That's awesome. Yeah, you go like Ramblin' Jack Elliott. He was I can't remember if he was Bronx or Brooklyn, but he saw the rodeo at Madison Square Garden and then ran away from home to go follow the rodeo.
Yes,
and now he's like a cowboy legend in his own right,
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of like me. I mean, I basically ran away. My mom was crying in the yard when I left, and man, you'd have thought that I was going to sell my soul somewhere. And the way that I broke the hearts of my family and friends, and had a lot of people pull me aside and tell me how, well, it's not going to be what you expect out there, and y'all just stay here where it's safe, and you could get a real job, and then you could afford to go and do things that you want to do. And I'm like, no, it's not for me. And for a kid that barely graduated high school, I homeschooled my last few years and basically just filled in the answer blank, got a degree, got out of there, never went to college, and to be able to have a place in this world now is, I'm pretty proud of it, and I'm thankful for it,
No, that's awesome. I didn't have a choice. My mom, she's like, you're going to college. And by the way, we're not paying for it, but you're going to college. Like, there wasn't ever a choice. But also, I read from the time I was 10, and not because I wanted to. It was like, yeah, you don't have a choice. You're also getting on the bus. And there was somebody was I think it was when I was like early college years. I was talking to somebody. They're asking about my dad about me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he'll get on anything." And I was like, "Well, I didn't know there was a choice to get on it. I was just told to get on it."
Yeah. I kind of came up the same way. My mom and uncle rehabbed a lot of thoroughbreds off the racetrack because that was kind of the thing to do back then. And jumpers weren't riding warm bloods like they are now, and so that was the source of horses. So they go to the track and they'd come home with a bunch of these cracked out thoroughbreds that were pretty rank, at least at the age I was, and I'd get a leg up on them and take them on the run, and they'd turn me loose with those horses and get them figured out, and figured I'd bounce better than they did. It was kind of the same deal. I didn't have a lot of choice in that.
Yeah, it's those thoroughbreds are a different animal than a quarter horse. I mean, they really are. They got a different mindset about them, and
they'll teach you feel. They will teach you feel.
Yeah, they're kind of goofy, because they're particularly.
There's no kind about it. They're pretty goofy.
Yeah, particularly the ones that are racing. I mean, that's like most of them, vast majority of them. But
yeah, most of them. Yep.
They're designed to run, and that's kind of it. Like that, they're kind of like the dairy cow.
Yeah.
That you don't care about the
You're
maternal,
exactly right.
that Holstein. You just want one. You want big fat udders and a bunch of milk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thoroughbred, you want speed and stamina.
Yep, that's it. I mean that's and it makes for working them hard because they got some stamina.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they're different kind of animal where they're. It's not that they're dumb. They're like. I mean, they're just bred for that.
It's just genetics, and it's like I look at the cattle down here in Florida. Down here in Florida, there's things that'll eat you everywhere you turn. I mean, from gators and big snakes and this and that. So the cattle down here, they're pretty snuffy. They're pretty touchy. They're a lot higher strung. They run a lot more Bramer in them, and they're a lot different than cattle in Montana, Oregon, and so it demands that you got to kind of adapt the way that you handle these cattle a lot different than the way you would up there.
Oh, for sure. And you're down in Florida now, right?
Yes, sir. I base out of Ocala, Florida.
Okay. What brought you down there? Just cattle, or you got more clients down there?
No, actually, I got sick of starvation wages, just cowboying, and I always knew I wanted to be a horse trainer. That was something that was always there when I was out west. The way I got by and the way I kind of climbed the ladder was that I was a colt man. I was a 2-year-old man, and I worked for a lot of different places. So even though I was cowboying, I was always riding colts or broncs or something for somebody. And, I started hearing a lot about Ocala blowing up as far as, it's kind of the horse capital of the world here. There's more horses in Marion County, Florida than about anywhere. And it's pretty unbelievable. It really is a sight to see. But, I came down here with the, hopes of really making a name for myself, getting on higher end horses and actually making a living and being able to have a good life. And it worked out. I've been here about 10 years and I've managed to build a business that's pretty darn good. And that's thanks a lot to a lot of different people who've been kind of pivotal in my life. But, it's put me in a spot where I'm able to go day work down here. I'm able to go out and visit friends. Like I'm going out with my buddy Greg Robinson to Blackfoot, Idaho, and we're gonna go see Dwight Hill out there and brand with him after we do our colt starting out there, and go hit some brandings and do some things like that. So I've managed to find this balance in my life where I can be a horse trainer, but also continue to be a cowboy and have my hand in the ranching community and be a part of that. And so it was a good move for me. It was a smart move.
That's awesome. I'll have to come out and visit you one of these days. That sounds like
heck yeah, man. It's a good time. There's always something going on here, and everybody I've had, like my friend Greg Robinson and a lot of these other guys that have come down to visit me, everybody is blown away by the culture here. And it's not anything like what people think it would be. It's a lot different.
Well, my views on Florida all come from just searching Florida Man and your birthday.
Yes. Yes.
and so
hilarious.
I don't know what to think of Florida. I like DeSantis. I don't know if I'd like him as president, honestly. I'm not on him or policy, but I like him as governor. But yeah, I've never been down there. I'd like to, but I don't know much about it. What my initial thoughts are of Florida. I know enough.
Yes.
To know that like Miami and Panhandle are completely different.
You're going out just a little bit again, buddy.
Okay. Well,
there you are.
Yeah, I know enough to know that like Miami and South Florida is completely different world than the Panhandle, but That's about all I know of
Sure.
Florida.
Yeah. Well,
but I have.
I can say this about. I can say this about DeSantis. He being here during COVID and all of that nonsense. He handled this state about as good or better than anybody out there, and that really made me a believer in him because while everybody else were losing jobs, losing money, we were open pretty darn quick. We never really fully shut down. He found a lot of ways to keep businesses going and keep things running along. And if anything, I had probably my best year financially during COVID and every year since. And I really attribute that to DeSantis.
Yeah, like I said, he's been incredible as the governor down there. Like I said, I'm
Yes.
not 100% on him on president, but when it comes to any other Democrat that they're going to throw up there, yeah, I'll vote DeSantis over that shit.
Yes, sir.
And I'll say the sheriffs in Nevada kind of
Yep.
they're about equal to DeSantis in Florida because
Yes.
when they started doing all this stupid bullshit like the casinos and whatnot in the big cities of Rio and Vegas, like COVID really took a toll. But in the rural counties, the sheriffs just said fuck you and not enforcing that. And and so like, life just kind of went on as normal. Like there was some inconveniences and there were still mask mandates that some people complied with, but like overall the sheriffs were just like nope, not my problem. I'm not enforcing that. And
the sheriffs here in Florida did the same.
That's awesome. And so like I'm as bad as our state legislature is here in Nevada, like I'm not worried about a whole lot of it because if it's stupid enough that the counties are just going to be like, no, we're not doing that, and they're not going to just send people from Vegas to arrest the rest of the state,
Yep.
Like there almost needs to be like two separate state legislatures, like you have the Vegas legislature and then the rural legislature. And
yes.
If there's any that affects the entire state, then both legislatures have to vote on it. But it's just like, no, you let Vegas do Vegas things and rural Nevada do rural Nevada things. And we don't have a state tax, so we don't have to worry about that. So like, unless it's a huge, like, let's not even intermingle the politics. Like, let Vegas do their thing.
I agree. I agree very much.
It's I don't know. Maybe that's the way going forward is you have two separate but equal state legislatures, and then when it comes to the matters of the entire state, then you have the rural versus the urban legislature.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. It's crazy, but it made me really thankful to live where I did.
Same here.
Lived in a lot of place than that. So
I agree.
Go ahead. As I say, I'm going to take a leak real quick. We'll kind of end that for the main show. You got anywhere you want people to follow you online and whatnot?
Yeah, they can just Facebook. I do so much business on. That's kind of the source of it for me. I don't really advertise or do much beyond that, but people can check out Cliff Shad Performance Horsemanship on there. A lot of I try to just keep it real. I don't ever want to be one of them gimmicky guys that are just trying to sell you something every time. I don't sell anything but my knowledge and my experience. And, I try to be down to earth and real and transparent with people. I don't make it all fairy farts and unicorn dust and all that. And so people can look me up there and reach out, questions, comments. I love interacting with people, and that would just be great.
Awesome. Well, go follow him. Cool guy for sure. And we'll come back here in a little bit, do a bonus episode for Patreon. So if you'd like to hear that, patreon.com/BurninDaylight. It's also the best way to support the show. Cliff, it's been a great talk, and we'll come back and maybe we'll talk a little bit about your horsemanship style, and we'll go.
I would
go
love
a little,
that.
Go a little more in the weeds on that because people really like that. So, like I said, if you guys want to hear that, patreon.com/BurninDaylight. And I appreciate it, Cliff. It's been a good chat. I enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Sounds good to me.
All right, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Just together, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right.